Millennials are less likely to believe in organized religion. They are increasingly in favor of and in belief of certain non-traditional religions. This is a very devastating story. This is a very devastating story.
Welcome back. It's OmCatSat, and we are back with another video. Today, we are looking at the Young Turks offering on the millennial generation and their alleged trend of moving away from traditional, organized religion in favor of astrology and witchcraft. So, the first thing that struck me of significance after that is Anna Kasparian's well-turned-out appearance and flustered mood was the ironic description that accompanies the video. Quote, "Do you love superstitious nonsense, but hate judgment and dogma? Astrology and witchcraft may be right for you." End quote. Did you spot that? It's a pretty common trait, the Young Turks expressing a dismissive, judgmental and dogmatic attitude. But hey, I don't want to give the Young Turks too hard a time. After all, the election is over, and we need to be constructive. We will take a leaf out of Dave Rubin's book, as he's a gentleman. And a very nice man.
He's a very nice man.
You're a very nice man.
I like him.
You're a very nice man.
So we can see, and Cenk points it out repeatedly, that Anna is a little flustered. My guess as to what has triggered her is the use of the term witchcraft, which is in the title of the article in question by Carrie Peel from Market Watch. This term conjures, perhaps, a darker image in comparison to alternative terms. Terms such as pagan or Wicca. In fact, the only terms named in the article by Carrie Peel were quoted from metaphysical boutique owner Melissa Jane. The terms mentioned were spellcasting, tarot, astrology, meditation, and trance, and herbalism. Nothing too sinister then. Alternatively, what could have set her off may have been something as benign as not having any time for horoscopes and the like. Either way, it's Cenk to the rescue with his dapper brown jacket who tries to calm the flustered Anna. Before we are presented with some statistics.
I don't think so. I think this is overhyped, but let's do the numbers and then we'll discuss.
Okay, so millennials like witchcraft and...
No, they don't.
So the percentage of people between the ages of 18 and 29 who never doubt the existence of God fell from 81% in 2007 to 67% in 2012.
So this is in keeping with the context of millennials, and these numbers seem to get Cenk pretty excited.
And remember, that's 2012. 5 years later, that number is way lower, I guarantee it. And we've seen it in other polls of all Americans. So I find that phenomenon to be fantastic. Just a couple of years ago, when 14% of Americans said they no longer believed in religion, that number this year jumped to 24%. So this thing is taking off like a rocket. How many times do I have to be right?
So I'm going to do my dramatic announcement, okay? I'm calling it. Hillary Clinton, the winner of this presidential election.
More than half of young adults in the United States believe astrology is a science, compared to less than 8% of the Chinese public. Okay, I don't know why there was like that needless comparison to China, but nonetheless.
It's rubbing in our face in it. The Chinese believe other absurd things, by the way.
So, there are a few things here to untangle. The first thing to point out is that the article in Market Watch is quoting from various sources. The initial statistic here was carried out by the Pew Research Center. The second statistic was cited from a survey carried out by the National Science Foundation. All well and good, you may think, but there seems to be an anomaly in the form of the number of Chinese people who accept that astrology is scientific, and Anna has picked up on it straight away. But poor Cenk on the other hand hasn't noticed so much, and to make matters worse, the alleged Chinese statistic actually supports the skeptic with only 8% accepting astrology as scientific. But Cenk, rather than using that statistic to his advantage, proceeds to double down on the Chinese. The confusion comes from the fact that the link in the MarketWise article, which is given as a citation for the Is Astrology Scientific Survey, doesn't actually take you to the National Science Foundation, which is supposed to be the source of the information. Rather, it takes you to an article by United Press International. The article in question by the UPI is a tad confusing to say the least. The title reads, quote, "Majority of young adults think astrology is a science." Yet we find in the article itself the following. Quote, according to a new survey by the National Science Foundation, nearly half of all Americans say astrology, the study of celestial bodies' purported influence on human behavior and worldly events, is either very scientific or sort of scientific. So here we've got majority and then nearly half. So, over 50%, or just under 50%. Make your mind up, for Pete's sake. It gets worse though. The article continues, quote, by contrast, 92% of the Chinese public think horoscopes are a bunch of baloney, unquote. So, you have to ask yourself the question, would a government body, like the National Science Foundation, use terminology like baloney? When you follow the UPI link to the National Science Foundation, it still doesn't take you to the specific survey. So, it's not quite a dead end, but feel free to pick up from where I left off. The NSF is a United States body and not an international foundation, so my guess is that this Chinese statistic is baloney. Also, if you know anything about the Chinese, you'll know that they're a superstitious bunch. So I'm calling bullshit on this statistic. I think it's much higher. But still, Cenk hasn't figured out that the baloney statistic actually helps strengthen his skepticism of the science behind astrology.
So they just happen to pick astrology because the Chinese aren't that into astrology. On the other hand, they think some percentage of Chinese believe that tiger penis will make you hard if you eat it. Okay, so
have you tried though?
No, I have not. I can assure you. Okay.
Whoa, that is a fucking lie.
So there are these things known as metaphysical boutiques that are in hip, trendy areas throughout the country.
That I believe.
And the owners have said that they've experienced an uptick in clientele over the last 5 years, especially among New Yorkers in their 20s. So these workshops, these stores offer workshops like Witchcraft 101, Astrology 101, and Spirit Seance.
So I have seen that. Look, to be fair, I have seen an increase in spirituality, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah,
I don't begrudge anybody's spirituality or faith.
Yeah.
The religions are wrong. So if they've gotten rid of religion and they have a different faith or spirituality and it's their own, God bless their hearts. Maybe literally.
So there's a saying that a fool is never revealed until he opens his mouth. And here, Cenk's revealing his inner wisdom, his deepest 2 cents on spiritual emancipation, which is really helpful since he's a self-confessed agnostic atheist. He's basically saying that he doesn't begrudge anyone's faith, but that religions are wrong. That if you've rejected religion and have made up your own belief system that's distinct from the established religions that are literally carved in stone, then God bless your heart.
So look, I don't believe in astrology. I don't think that that everyone born at the same time all act the same way and will have the same things happen to them. That is a really preposterous thing to believe. But I get that a lot of people believe it. I love you, brothers and sisters. And then there's the folks who believe that there is energy everywhere and you could like move it around and stuff by doing this. I love you, but
alrighty then. This one's a bit of a no-brainer, or to be more accurate, it's a strawman argument that Cenk's putting forward. And he's not so much doing this because he's trying to deceive anyone, but because he just doesn't know how astrology is purported to work. Time is not the only factor in astrology. Location is the other half of the calculation. Also, who knows of people that are born at the same time in the same place? Even twins that are born just a few minutes apart will have completely different charts and correspondingly different natures. Again, this is a strawman argument. Regarding the moving energy around jig that Cenk did, Well, I can see his point of view, but it comes across as rather childlike. Any 2-bit scientist can tell you that everything is energy. I mean, do I really have to spell it out? From the sun that grows your food, to the electricity or fire that cooks it, and then the food that gets broken down into proteins and sugars that fuels your body and gives you energy. There are so many forms of energy, both visible and invisible. Again, everything is energy.
The witchcraft people, like, oh, witchcraft, ridiculous, what a flying around rose. They're actually more into nature. They're actually some of the more sensible ones of these different beliefs.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, they're not actually brewing anything over a pot, right?
They're not flying on brooms.
Right, they actually are trying to respect nature, etc. So I believe that there is a little bit of movement towards some beliefs that I don't ascribe to, and I have to confess, sometimes find goofy, okay? But would I rather have them believe in energy and tarot cards, or that we should all kill each other because some rabbi or mullah said it 2,000 years ago? Ooh, tarot cards, what's your sign? Okay, way better than the old religions that are totally wrong and often lead to violence.
So, there are 2 subjects in this last segment. Firstly, the subject of witchcraft. The more common umbrella terms, popularized these days, are Wiccan and Neo-paganism. They are nature-focused paths, and would also include Druidry, and those who worship Norse deities, and so forth. Wicca is probably one of the most popular forms of pagan religion. It was invented as a modern form of pagan witchcraft in the 1940s. It draws on many aspects of ceremonial magic, and engages a strong set of ethics with the foresight of the karmic consequences involved therein. They honor the cycle of nature and the manifestation of the divine in all its diverse forms. They use initiation and ceremony in order to help foster a deeper connection to mystery. Then on the darker side you have those who are involved in Gothic magic or demonology. Unfortunately, you won't see compassion or maturity in their lives and dealings. Goes is Greek for spirit. Technically, that includes both good and malign spirits. However, most Wiccans do work with spirits, but they are more focused on their respective gods. So that's your witchcraft in a nutshell, 101. Secondly, we've got Chenk's take on the New Age versus the ancient established and organized religions. Cenk sides with your New Age practitioners, as he sees them as less destructive. His qualification is such that all he can do is weigh the New Age practices, which he perceives as being, for the most part, benign, against the death toll amassed by the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Perhaps he's seeing the New Age as progressive spirituality, but he's not buying into it. Your agnostic atheist will always argue against the Abrahamic religions, and your theists will condemn the death tolls of your atheistic communist authoritarians. Essentially, those of small intellect, of the different traditions and philosophies, will sometimes argue in favor of their own respective realization and understanding. However, the perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that the various features of the one absolute truth are actually different perspective views, seen from different angles of vision. Take the moon for example. Some see the moon as full, some see it as half full, and some see the moon in a different phase altogether. The moon, however, is always full. But, according to the viewer, it is being perceived in a certain way. So that'll do it for this week. This Young Turks video focused on the millennial age group. The Pew Research Survey, however, was very detailed and included variables such as other age groups, political persuasion, gender, income, and education, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. Cat, Sat,